Hello, thank you for watching this Prism Connect training video. This video is all about administration. My name is Shannon and I will be your guide through the administration module. This video is targeted towards the users who have administrator access. Within it, we will go through each of the windows available within the administration module and talk about the settings and information available and what those settings and information control within the application. On the administration page, there are two groupings, one for administrator and one for accounting. The administrator grouping is limited or restricted to only administrator users. Only the administrators can access the links and windows within this grouping. The accounting grouping is available to the administrator or anyone who has the accounting level of access. In this video, I'm going to go through each of the windows available here on the administration page and talk about the information and settings available within each. Let's get started in the users area. The users window is available to control which users have access to the system, what their name and user ID is. This is where you assign an initial password, grant the user access to, grant the level of access that a user has, as well as for the clinicians to be able to set up license numbers, NPI numbers, control which calendars the clinician shows up on with regards to scheduling. So let's go through a little exercise in creating a new user, and we'll just kind of talk about each of the fields and information available here. So I'm going to go down to the bottom and click the New button, and let's create a user called Sam Johnson. Now, as you can see here, I've used a combination of upper and lowercase characters, and you have full control over whether or not you use, how you type the user ID. But let me just point out that that user ID is used by that user to log into the application, and the login page is case sensitive. So if you are using a combination of upper and lowercase characters, that's what the user will need to use to log into the application. So I've entered in a user ID. I'm going to spell out the user's name here. After entering in first and last name, you can see that the a concatenation of first and last has been automatically populated for full name. Title, I'm going to give this person a title of audiologist. The password field allows you to assign an initial password. Passwords have to be at least 8 characters in length, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but in the system settings you can require strong passwords, and basically when you are requiring a strong password, the user must enter a combination of upper and lowercase characters as well as numerical characters and special characters. In this case, as in the system I'm using today, I do not require strong passwords, so I just need to enter in at least a minimum of 8 characters for the password. The password you initially assign is just kind of a one-time single-use password. The first time the user logs into the application, they will be prompted to change their password, and so that they are the only ones that know the password. NPI number is important for the clinicians who are seeing patients. When you are submitting a health insurance claim form for a patient, the NPI number of the clinician that saw the patient will be included or can be included on the health insurance claim form. So go ahead and enter in that NPI number as applicable. Main clinic allows you to denote a user's primary or preferred clinic. So if you've got a new user and you're they're working out of one location, perhaps that would be their main clinic. So in this case, this new clinician is going to be working at our Brooklyn Park clinic. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that as the clinic. Basically, main clinic serves as a default. So when the user is creating a like a new well, I was going to say a new patient. There's some defaulting that occurs when you have a main clinic selected. I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but the main clinic will default in a few places throughout the application when you have a clinic selected. It's perfectly fine to leave the main clinic selection blank, and basically that would be useful for users who might be facilitating or working with the patients of many different clinics. So maybe they're kind of maybe they're working out of some central office, but yet they're kind of maybe calling patients for appointment reminders or whatnot for several different clinics. In that case, it's perfectly fine to leave main clinic blank and not have a preferred clinic in those cases. The next field available is to denote whether or not this user is a clinician. And if they are a clinician, then you can add license numbers for that user, as well as add the clinician to the calendar for scheduling purposes. So I'm going to flag this user as a clinician. The next checkbox over here is a privacy officer for HIPAA. And the way that we use that, I'm going to go into the patient management suite here for a moment and go to the Forms Miscellaneous tab. We have a form here called the HIPAA office form, and basically this is a the HIPAA disclosure form. And there's a line in here that says, if you have any questions about this notice, please contact our privacy contact, who is William Savage. So I have a user named William Savage in my system who is denoted as the privacy officer. And so that's what is controlling the name that appears here on this HIPAA disclosure form. Let me jump back into the administration area. And so that's what this checkbox controls. You can denote a user as the privacy officer for HIPAA, and their name will appear on that HIPAA disclosure form. The next section available here is license numbers. To the right of the license number information box is a little plus and a minus sign. So I'm going to go ahead and click the plus sign, and that inserts a row into the section where I can now use a drop down here for license type, and I can choose between whether I'm defining an audiologist license or a dispensing license. So I'm going to go ahead and choose audiology, and then I'm going to tab over to the state column and select Minnesota as my state, because that's where I'm setting up this clinician. And then I can enter in the license number for the state of Minnesota for this audiologist. So I can continue to insert lines here, as many as are needed, and again set up audiologists, and let's say this clinician also has a license to for audiology in the state of Iowa, a neighboring state here to Minnesota. So I'm going to enter in another license number for Iowa, and let's say that they also work in South Dakota as well from time to time. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the state of South Dakota as well, and enter in a number for the state of South Dakota. So now I've got South Dakota, Iowa, and Minnesota. So if this clinician is working or is licensed to work in any of these states, then I can go ahead and set up those license numbers accordingly. Calendar clinics field, I'm going to double click on this field, and that opens up a little pop-up where I can associate this clinician with the clinic at which I'm going to want to schedule appointments for. So I'm going to go ahead and associate them with the Brooklyn Park Clinic. You can associate the clinician with multiple clinics, and you can hold down the control key and then select additional clinics. So I could associate this clinician with these 5 different clinics. And basically what that's going to do is make Sam Johnson here show up as a clinician at each of these clinics. So if he was going to be bouncing between different locations on different days of the week or what have you, you can associate him with multiple clinics, and then his name will appear on the schedule for each of those clinics. So in this case, that's not what I want to have happen. I really just want him to be associated with the Brooklyn Park Clinic. So I'm going to go ahead and reselect Brooklyn Park, click OK, and now you'll see just that listing for that one clinic here. The next section allows you to control what level of access this user has. There are 4 primary levels of access: administrator, accounting, provider, or PCC, or patient care coordinator. Those are the 4 different levels. I've got another little slide here that I'm going to bring up and help explain what each of those levels of access allow the user to get access to. So as you can see, when a user is denoted as an administrator, they basically have access to everything within the application. So that's the highest level of access that a user can have, and that's the administrator. Accounting is slightly less than the administrator, the only difference being that when the accounting level has been granted, they do not have access to change any of the information available within the administrator grouping on the administration page. So just a moment ago we were looking at the administration page, and we saw those 2 groupings. So accounting level of access has access to everything but that grouping of links, providing access to control different system settings and information that control drop-downs throughout the application. The next level of access is a provider, and as you can see, they have access to the patient management suite, employee tasks, physician sales reporting, and invoice approval. They do not have any access to the administration page. They do have access to order/receiving, so they can create stock orders and receive orders. They do not have access to any of the accounting related features and functionality on the main window of the application. The PCC is a patient care coordinator. That is the lowest level of access. It grants them access to the patient management suite, of course, employee tasks, and physicians. By default, it does not allow them to access sales reporting or invoice approval or accounts receivable, but we do add another little layer of access where you can override. So if you wanted to assign a user the PCC level of access, but also wanted them to have access to sales reporting, invoice approval, or accounts receivable, you can still grant them access to those modules. Okay. They do not have access to the administration. They can create stock orders and receive stock orders, as well as patient orders, and they too do not have access to any of the accounting related functionality, with one exception, that is the accounts receivable module as an override. Okay, so let me go back over to back into the application here, and so in this case I'm going to go ahead and grant that user a provider level of access. When the provider is selected, I can still override and grant them access to the accounts receivable module. So if I want them to have that override access, I can grant that. If I had granted them PCC level of access, then you can see that there's another little collection of overrides here where I can grant them access to invoice approval, accounts receivable, or sales reporting, or none of the above, or any combination thereof. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and grant them access as a provider. If you grant somebody user administrator level of access, there's no need to check any of the other checkboxes here. You can do so, it doesn't hurt, but once they have the highest level of access, or whatever the highest level of access is, that's ultimately what they have control over. So in this case, I'm going to grant the user provider access, and then I'm going to grant them access to the accounts receivable module. We're going to talk about roles in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and enter in an email address for this user. The reason that an email address is important is that on the login page, we grant the user the ability to reset their password. So if they can't remember their password and need assistance or need a reset of their password. The employee email address is important because it's this email address to which the password resets are sent. So go ahead and make sure that you are in fact entering a valid email address for your users. I'm going to go ahead and save this user, and then I'm going to go back in and edit it because I also want to assign some roles to the user. So I'm going to click on the roles button, and we have two different roles defined today. One is a PCC or patient care coordinator or inventory manager. So when you have users assigned to a role of a PCC, basically they are people who can be completing tasks or events that come due from time to time. And the advantage of assigning tasks to roles like a PCC is that you can have one or many people serving in that role, and no matter who's working on a given day, anybody can be completing those tasks that become due on a given day. So perhaps you have a couple of people, a couple of employees who alternate working different days of the week. So you've got one user who might work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and another user who works on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So no matter who's working on a given day, as tasks or events come due via the employee tasks, anybody who's working on a given day can complete the tasks assigned to the PCC role. And when you're assigning a user to a PCC role, you can associate them with a clinic. So they will only be seeing tasks associated with a certain clinic. So you can have a PCC, one PCC working at each clinic, and they would be responsible for completing various tasks, following up with patients, doing appointment confirmations, those sorts of things. So let's say that this user, Sam Johnson, is an audiologist, but it's a small office and they kind of have to serve double duty, and they might also be serving as a PCC. So I'm going to go ahead and add that user as a PCC, and that should be showing up here where that role is being assigned. And I'm not sure why that is not happening. Let me go ahead and close out of this for a moment. Save this user, re-edit, go into roles, and associate them with Brooklyn Park and add it. There we go. Looks like we've got some little bug that's going on with the new user. So now I've got this user assigned to the PCC role at the Brooklyn Park Clinic. If they are also going to be, so the another role that we have is an inventory manager, and they might be responsible for returning stock hearing aids back to the manufacturer if in the cases where you've got stock hearing aids that can be returned to the manufacturer by a certain date, or if you don't return them by a certain date, then they need to be kept and sold. So inventory manager can be assigned to, and then they will be receiving reminders to send back stock aids. They can also fulfill transfer requests and such like that if you're in a multi-clinic organization where you might be transferring product between different locations, different clinics. So again, if I want to assign this user to the inventory manager role, when you are assigning inventory manager role, it doesn't really matter which clinic they're associated with. So I'm going to say they're inventory manager at all clinics. And so I'm going to go ahead and associate that role to the user. The lower right hand corner here, we have a space where you can upload and scan. Well, what you can do is scan scan a signature of the user, and then you can upload that scanned signature and associate it to this user profile. So if you right mouse click on the signature field, there's a little pop-up that it becomes available called Paste from File. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and then within here, let's say that this was an image of the signature, because I just don't have one. If I wanted to use this logo as a signature for this user, then that signature would be available or get saved here. And thereafter, that signature is used on purchase agreements, so it's kind of a way to automatically sign purchase agreements where the clinician signature is required. Once you have uploaded or scanned in a signature and you want to remove it from this user profile, you can just go ahead and click the delete button, and then that image will be discarded. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this user profile, and that's everything that I think I need to cover regarding users. So let's close this window, return to the administration page, and just go into the next link here, and that is called AIDS. And AIDS really is basically the same window that you get to by right mouse clicking on a patient's list of AIDS and saying that you wanted to edit it. So I'm back in the patient management suite. I've got a patient record open here, and let's say I wanted to select this aid record, and I would right mouse click and say that I want to edit the aid or ear mold. Look where I end up when I edit that aid or ear mold. Basically, I'm in the aids, hearing aids, ear molds, and other serialized product window. But that's the same place that we were at. If I jump back over to this other tab here in my browser, now I'm on a different tab. Basically, I'm also in the hearing aids, ear molds, and other serialized product. So this is just kind of another way of getting at the aids, although in this case I don't have an aid record automatically selected. But this list in the upper right hand corner basically is giving me a listing of all the aid records in the system. So we have about 1,700, almost 1,800 aid records in this demo database that I'm working with here. And selecting any one hearing aid then kind of reveals all the corresponding detail. If I jump over to this other tab, you'll notice that it's exactly the same window. So you're probably already familiar with this aids window. But just basically allows you to control serial numbers, warranty expirations, make and model of the hearing aid, what side the patient's wearing the hearing aids on. A lot of information about the aid, but that's all available here. So that's the aids window. I'm not going to really say much more about that. The next link available here gets me into the appointment types. So appointment types, this is the listing of appointment types that is available on the appointment schedule. You can create your own appointment types. You can edit any of the existing types. So if I select one of the existing types, you'll notice here that we've got a description. So if I wanted to edit this type, I could change the description. I can change the appointment color, so if I wanted it to show up in a shade of blue, I can change the color, select accordingly. So we have a predefined listing of different colors, and basically you'll notice that all of the colors are really kind of lighter shaded or lighter hued colors, so that basically this is controlling what color scheme is used on the schedule. So when you create an appointment of this type, it's going to appear on the schedule in the color that you have selected. And all of the colors are lightly colored so that the text corresponding to the appointment shows through. If we had darker shaded colors here, then it makes it really hard to see some of the text that you'd want to see on the schedule. So you have control over the colors. You have control over the description. You can create new appointment types here, and if you've got an appointment type that you know, that came with the system by default and you don't want to use it, you can go ahead and archive it just by clicking the archive checkbox. I'm not going to archive this one, but just go ahead and save those changes. If I want to create a new appointment type, I can just go ahead and enter in a short abbreviation. So let's say this is, I'll call this my annual hearing test, AHT, and just a short little abbreviation that kind of makes some sense to you with regards to the description. So I'm going to call this the annual hearing test appointment. And I want that to show up in, let's say, one of the blues. Let's take that blue color as the color code for my annual hearing test. So that's the way in which you can create and or edit your appointment types. I'm going to go ahead and close that window. The next thing that corresponds to the appointment types is appointment length. I'm going to go into the appointment lengths, and what you'll see in here is that we have the ability here to create a predefined length or duration for each of our appointment types, and you can do so either for one clinician or for all clinicians. So we have one of the clinicians is defined as default. So and when I created my new appointment type, you'll notice that a default appointment duration was automatically created. So I'm going to go ahead and select this line item here. So my default, no matter which clinician it is, my default for my annual hearing test is going to have a duration of 30 minutes. Let's say I want that to be a 45-minute duration. So I'm going to go ahead and change that duration, click the OK button, and save it. But I've got one clinician, and maybe it's my new clinician. Let's say Sam Johnson, my new clinician that we just created. Let's say for the annual hearing test, he prefers maybe 1 hour for that appointment type. So now I have, for Sam Johnson and the annual hearing test, I have a default duration of 1 hour. And so I'm going to go ahead and save that. So you have just kind of a listing of defaults. You always have a default for each new appointment type that you create. The default for the default will be 30 minutes. You can come in here and edit it accordingly. But then you can override or come up with, on a clinician by clinician basis, a new or an override duration for each appointment type, and this is the means by which you have to set that information up. If you have created a default duration and wanted to delete it, maybe you've got a clinician that has left your organization, you want to delete it, you can select that that duration and just go ahead and click the delete button, and that will go ahead and delete that duration from the listing. Okay, so that's the appointment lengths. The next item in the list is appointment outcomes, and this is essentially the different appointment, the quick appointment types, outcome types that are available when you're closing out an appointment. So I'm going to go back into the patient management suite. And I'm just going to double click on one of the appointments for this patient record. So when we go into right mouse click on the appointment, go into the appointment outcomes, the quick appointment outcome is the drop down that's populated by the appointment outcomes types. Okay, so now I hope I'm not confusing people by bouncing, but I've got two tabs in my browser. One where I'm staying in whatever administration window that we're reviewing, and the other one that is just kind of taking me out to other systems areas within the system where I can just kind of better explain what we're kind of looking at within the administration area. So quick appointment outcome is the drop down that's controlled by our appointment outcome types. So you can see here we've got our no-shows, we have our that the appointment was completed or the appointment was rescheduled. And so when you have an appointment, when an appointment outcome is being entered and one of these appointment outcome types has been selected, you have the ability to control what color that appointment changes to. So oftentimes when we're closing out appointments and the appointment is completed, the color of the appointment changes from whatever its default is to an all-white color. That's often the scenario that I have when I'm doing demonstrations and doing training. So for each appointment outcome type, you can add or define the description. You can change the color, and that's just previewed here. If you wanted to use any of the other predefined lightly shaded colors, you can select accordingly. In addition, when certain types of appointments are being closed out, you can have the system automatically create a scheduled event. So in this case, when we are completing an appointment that is a hearing aid fitting, we have an event that is automatically created and for the patient, and it is going to be created as an appointment type or of this event type. So we're doing a phone out, a predefined text that will be displayed in the event, and then the number of days after the appointment outcome is entered, where that event will pop up in the task list. So, or when it's scheduled. So what we're saying here is that when we have a hearing aid fitting that's being completed, where the appointment is being completed, we're going to create an event for the patient that's going to be of the type phone out. This is the text that is going to appear in that event, and it's going to come due 7 days from the date of the appointment. Okay, and that's what this is basically saying here. So those are with the appointment types, you do not have the ability to create new appointment outcome types. You can just simply edit kind of the colors and whether or not these auto-created events are created when appointments are being closed. So that's the appointment outcomes. The next link is called company, and we have the concept of a company where we might have an organization, or we have an organization that manages that has several different clinics within the organizational group, but they are technically of two different companies. And in this case here, you can see in this demo database I have two different companies basically defined, and for each company I have different clinics associated with the company. And so you do not have the ability to create new companies. We here at OddServe can set up a new company and help you get that company configured correctly. If you were to have multiple companies, by default most people have just one single company, and so there isn't a whole lot more than that I think I need to say at this point. If you have some business scenario where you have multiple clinics and need to kind of manage or account for that, each different groups of clinics as different companies or treat them as different companies, we can help you configure some of these system settings to accommodate accordingly. The next link is clinics, and there's quite a bit to talk about here, so let's bring up one of our clinics. Again, you do not have the ability to create new clinics. We here at OddServe can set up additional clinics for you if necessary. You do definitely have the ability to edit your clinic information, beginning with your clinic short name. So how do you refer to your clinics? And kind of briefly. And we use the clinic short name in a lot of places throughout the application. Whenever you're looking at a drop-down list that is of clinics, we are basically showing this clinic short name. So use something that's meaningful to you, but is rather brief, because in a lot of places throughout the application we are showing a drop-down list of clinics, and it's basically this clinic short name that is displayed. And in a lot of places we're somewhat constrained by the width of the drop-downs and how big, how wide we can make that drop-down selection. So we call it short name because we kind of expect that just brief, short descriptions can be defined for each of your clinics. The clinic name is your longer name, and this would be the name that you would want to utilize within, like printed out on invoices or purchase agreements or letters. This would be the patient-facing clinic name or description that you would want to have appear on some of your printed documents that are coming out of the system. Address, self-explanatory. Address line 1 and 2, city, state, and zip. Phone numbers, we provide the ability to find up to 2 different phone numbers for the clinic, as well as a fax number. Main clinic here on clinics allows you to associate maybe some satellite clinics or service center clinics. Maybe there you have a service center clinic that's open just one day of the week, and one of the audiologists from another clinic comes out to that service center on that one day. So we have this concept of main clinic, where you can essentially associate, assign a clinic to be a main clinic. So whenever you have a clinic, in this case Plymouth, that has a main clinic of itself, that means it is a main clinic. It's a primary clinic. But when you have some of these service centers and you want to see sales information rolled up to maybe a primary or a main clinic, you can associate one of your service centers as kind of a child or a descendant of a main clinic. And so if you had another clinic that should roll up in terms of sales activity, roll up to one of the main clinics, then you can associate that service center clinic as being rolled up or associated with another clinic, and that's what main clinic provides you the ability to do. Federal tax ID for each clinic, NPI number for the clinic can be defined here. Whenever you're selling hearing aids and charging patients in cases where they are returning hearing aids within their assessment period, what amount that you want to charge the patient when they are returning hearing aids, this is where you can define that amount. So if you're charging them $350 for each hearing aid that's being returned, this is the place where you can do so. If you're charging them $200 for each hearing aid, again, that's what this allows you to define. Some states require a bond number be displayed on some of the printed documentation, like invoices and or purchase agreements. So if a bond number is required, if you enter a bond number, that will appear in some of the purchase agreements depending upon the states. If you're going to utilize QuickBooks as your accounting system, you can define what the QuickBook identifier will be, and the corresponding concept in QuickBooks is a class. So what is the class identifier for the clinic? You can record that that description here. In this case I have Plymouth, Minnesota defined. Excuse me. The next field is the clinic website. What is the web address for your clinic or organization? You can scan in a clinic logo, or if you have an image that would serve as the clinic logo, you can upload that clinic logo and associate it here. Just right mouse click on the clinic logo and choose paste from file. That opens up a little dialog where you can browse your computer to locate the image that represents your clinic logo, and then select it and click open, and that information will be brought back into the screen. If you had been utilizing a logo but wanted to delete it and not use any sort of logo, then you can just click the delete button and the clinic logo will be deleted. Batch appointment letters. The way that this checkbox is used is if you wanted to utilize, I'm going to jump back out and go into the patient management suite. On the schedule we have a button here called print appointment letters, and so let me select this, reselect this appointment, and so we give you the ability to print an appointment letter here, and that's on an appointment by appointment basis. And we're spinning away here. Let's be patient. Okay, the batch appointment letters checkbox is not really a feature that we tout at this time. It basically allows you to generate a letter that could be sent out to patients who have never been to your clinics before. I say that we don't tout it very much because it's the letter is not very configurable at this time. It's something we're pondering as a future enhancement, but it's not really something elaborating on at this time. So I'm just gonna kind of skip over that checkbox at this time. If your clinic is to be archived, just go ahead and flag it as such. Then thereafter, the clinic will no longer appear in drop downs throughout the application because it's not one at which you're perhaps doing business at anymore. The required PA text. There are a few states for which the hours of operation needed to be printed out. And so as a way to accommodate office hours, we gave this required PA text field as a way to describe the office hours on a clinic by clinic basis. That text appears on some of the state's purchase agreements right below, like the clinic name and address information near the top of the form. And so on the purchase agreements, that's where that this is where that information can be defined. The next few fields here are really optional usage. It's some information that our founder had utilized when he owned and operated several clinics. Lease start and end dates, description or any notes about the lease can be input here. Lease notification days and building manager information. Optional really don't serve much purpose except as just having a place to record that clinic information. Kind of tying into the appointment letters, this field over here on the right allows you to upload an image of portion of a letter that might include like directions and maps to each clinic location. Again, those appointment letters is not really a feature that we tout because it's not very configurable, and it really needs to kind of be built out and make it a little more robust than it is at this time. So that's kind of what the clinic map and directions are all about over on the right hand side. But that is essentially the clinic information. So I'll just go ahead and click OK to save what little I did change here. And it looks like I'm experiencing slow internet. Okay, so I'm going to close the clinics window, and the next thing we'll talk about is clinic tax. This is where you can input your tax rates on a clinic-by-clinic basis. Tax rates can be defined by item type. So I'm going to go ahead and select my Brooklyn Park location, my Brooklyn Park Clinic, and let's say that I'm going to define my tax rates for, let's say, batteries. And so at Brooklyn Park, the tax rate would be 7.275%. Any notes that you would want to record for that taxable item can be recorded there. Go ahead and click OK. The list on the right hand side is just kind of, you know, a listing of the information that's already been defined. You can sort it by clicking on column headers if you want to see, you know, the different clinics for which you have tax rates defined for the battery item type. So just go ahead and select an item, and you can click edit or of course click new to create a new tax rate for you know, any item types that you have. So again, I'll choose Brooklyn Park and consumer goods. They too are also taxed at 2.75%. Oops, too many periods. 7.275, and OK to save that. So that's the clinic tax. Clinic test rooms. If you have different testing rooms that are used from time to time by, you know, one or several different clinicians, you can set up those test rooms here, and then those test rooms that are defined for each clinic can then be you can schedule out those different test rooms on the appointment schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and again I'll choose Brooklyn Park as my clinic, and let's say I've got you know, my test room. Let's make it a little more interesting. I'll just do red test room. Red test room between front office and storage area. So just give it any old description to explain what your test room is all about. The way that test rooms are used, if I'm going to jump back into the patient management suite, and now let's jump into my schedule, and let's choose Brooklyn Park now as my clinic. And let's say I wanted to view the schedule by test room. You'll see now that I have the ability to schedule an appointment and block out a portion of time for my red test room. Okay, so that's what we're basically controlling, is when we're looking at the schedule for looking at it by test room. Alright, so let's go back over here. So that's where you have the ability to edit or create new test rooms. The next link is global items, and this is the listing of all of the goods that that OddServe has set up and is trying to maintain. Primarily, this is mostly hearing aid items. If you click on column headers within this listing, you can see see different groupings, or see the different item types that we have defined. So we have some discounts and dispensing fees set up, ear molds, a few ear molds, and primarily it's all hearing aids. And so you can see that we have hundreds and thousands of different hearing aid items defined. But we also have in here some of our service items, some of the repair types, but services, including like CPT codes or diagnosis codes for the different services. So you can't add any new items to the global items, but of course you can edit or change some of the descriptions, and of course list prices and such like that. So let me just close out of global items, and the next item is the list. In the list is our items. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new item, and let's say this is a new, let's say these are ear molds that we're getting from West Tone. So let's say this is some ear mold from West Tone as the item type. If you were doing a hearing aid item, then the aid model type would become a drop down in which you could choose, BTE or in the canal or what have you for the different model types. You cannot enter an item number. The system will just automatically come up with an item number for you. If your manufacturer had a certain vendor part number that you wanted to record here, you can do so. If you were defining a service item, one of the services, then you could flag it as a CPT code, and then you could choose, under which category that CPT code type would appear. Is it a diagnosis, a procedure, V code? If it is a CPT code, then you go ahead and flag accordingly. Otherwise, the CPT code type and code are disabled. Then you can enter in a manufacturer's suggested retail price. Let's say that it's $175, but our list price, our sell price is maybe $100. What is the expected cost? So this is where you can specify what you expect to be charged. So I'll just enter in $65. The way that we utilize the cost here is that as you're within accounts payable or when receiving patient orders, if you're inputting costs when receiving patient orders, the system will just kind of compare the actual cost that you're inputting compared to the expected cost. If there's a significant variance or a variance that exceeds the percentage threshold that you have defined in the system settings, then the system will issue an alert to you, just letting you know that, hey, maybe you were charged $75, but you're expecting the cost of the item to be $65. You can you'll receive a little prompt that just warns you that, hey, it looks like you may have been overcharged. There may be good reason, but if not, it's just a little alert to maybe consider disputing it with the manufacturer. If you're entering hearing aids, or maybe in the case of ear molds, if warranties are applicable, you can define the warranty period in number of months. So in this case, I'll enter 12 months for a 1-year warranty on these ear molds. Battery size, if applicable. Again, if it's a hearing aid, you can select the battery size. Now, for this particular item, you can denote whether or not you want it to be included in inventory reporting. So I don't ever want to see ear molds in my inventory reporting, so I'm going to deselect that item. Especially in the global items, if there were certain items, for a certain manufacturer that you do not want to see, maybe the item has been discontinued, you can flag it as a discontinued item. That will prevent the item from appearing in your items list. Additionally, do not display is just a way to override and prevent an item from appearing in the item list. When you're selling an ear mold or a hearing aid or some product that requires a right or a left side selection, go ahead and flag this checkbox accordingly. So if you were selling an invoice or an ear mold directly through an invoice, when you're adding an item, and let me just jump over into the patient management suite and let's go ahead and create a new invoice. Basically, if I was selling an ear mold from here, and I don't know if I have any ear molds in here. No, I don't have ear molds set up to be sold through here right now. But basically, if I'm selling, if I've got let's say a hearing aid or an ear mold selected here, well then I would have the ability to, basically what I'm saying by that checkbox is, do I want to force the user to denote whether the item that they're selling is for the right or the left side? And that is what this RL side selection controls. Okay, if you're setting up a repair item and it's a repair that's typically chargeable, you can go ahead and flag this checkbox as a chargeable repair, and then the system will automatically create an invoice when you're receiving repair orders back from the manufacturer, thus allowing you to create an invoice for that patient and set up that chargeable amount. Here, ear molds and hearing aids are always defined as serialized items. If you were setting up an accessory item, then you could flag it, you could control whether or not this item is a serialized item. And any serialized items are treated a little bit differently, throughout the system. They're treated more like hearing aids, where you can input serial numbers and define warranty expiration dates and such like that on an item by item basis. So if you're setting up a an accessory item that should be denoted as serialized, go ahead and flag accordingly. If you're setting up perhaps a new service item, where you wanted it to appear as one, with a CPT code and such, as a diagnosis or procedure code, then you can include it on the super bill. And when you have include on super bill checked, then you can associate it with some of the predefined groupings for the super bill. We'll talk about those in just a moment. But maybe some of the procedure codes or diagnosis codes to pertain to different groupings, so you can kind of have control over which grouping, when you're looking at a printed super bill, under which grouping those items would appear. Alright, if you're setting up a discount program, and let me just go cancel this new item, and let's review one of the discount programs that we have here. You can define an item as a discount item. And so basically what you're doing in this case is you're selling a discount program, and maybe you're not selling it. I mean, the list price can be $0. You don't have to charge for it. But basically putting a patient or an aid on a discount program entitles that patient to various discounts, right? So maybe it's free batteries, maybe it's reduced, maybe 25% off on accessories, or whatever the case may be. But basically, you can define an item an item as a discount program. And when you're doing so, you can define, what is the length of time that patient is entitled to different discounts. And you can define that length of period in days. So this is, 365. It's a 1-year discount program. So if the patient is given a discount program that entitles them to free batteries or discounts on accessories, for what period of time is that? And so anytime you're selling or invoicing a patient for some of those items that are included in a discount program, if the patient was added to the discount program within 365 days, then the system will automatically calculate a reduced amount for those items that pertain. We'll talk more about discount programs here in just a minute, but this is where you basically set up, one of the items that you can set up is that of a discount program, and that's what you have the ability to denote here. Is it an aid discount program where you are associating a specific hearing aid and it being on the discount program, or are you saying that the patient is on a discount program? So either option, those are just kind of two of the different types of discount programs that can be managed here within the system. And then this duration or length in days is the length of time or period of time that the discount program is in play. Alright, so that's a little bit about the items. And let me just go ahead and cancel those changes and close this window. So let's talk about the next item in the list is our item types. This is where you can define, you cannot create new item types, but you can edit some of the behaviors of the item types that we have defined here. So let me go ahead and edit this hearing aid item type. Should hearing aid be subject to sales tax? In the state of Minnesota, the state of Minnesota does require 2% sales tax on hearing aids, part of our MinCare program, or to basically pay for the MinCare program. So hearing aids in this demo system are subject to sales tax, and so when this clinic sales tax use checkbox is checked, then you can add this item type or add sales tax for that item type back in the clinic tax administration table. Hearing aids are always included in inventory reporting, but let's take ear molds as an example. If we wanted to edit that item Yeah, they too are included by default. What's one that is not? Accessories. Oh, what's a good example? Let me think here. Warranties would never. They're not an actual item that would be included in inventory reporting. So that item is deselected. This is a checkbox that we here at OddServe are controlling, and so that's not something you can change. Commission rates, though, you can change. So let's say if as you're selling warranty extensions, maybe you compensate clinicians on those warranty extensions at maybe a 25% commission rate. And so back in sales reporting, let me jump over there. In sales reporting, you have the ability to the system can calculate commissions for you, and one of the methods by which you can compensate clinicians is by variable rates depending upon the item types. So these commission rates that you're seeing here are managed here within the item types. So now that I have warranty set up as a commission rate of 25%, if I go back into sales reporting and go back into the commissions and choose this radio item, now you see that warranties are showing up in here with a 25% commission rate. So that's what this commission rate is controlling. And let's go back to hearing aids here for a minute and talk about whether this radio button grouping here that we have called available in invoicing. And so what this is allowing you to do is to control whether or not hearing aid items, in this case, can be sold directly through an invoice. By default, the way we have Prism Connect configured is that all hearing aids would be sold through a purchase agreement. So no, we are not allowing hearing aids to be sold or included in invoicing. So I cannot directly sell a hearing aid item through an invoice. If you wanted to be able to sell hearing aids through invoicing, then you can go ahead and toggle accordingly and say, yes, I want to sell all hearing aid items. Now all hearing aids are serialized, so this radio button wouldn't serve much purpose where I say yes, but only non-serialized items, because all hearing aids are serialized. But in the case of, let me just go ahead and cancel that, and let's take accessories. So in the case of accessories, maybe I want to say, yeah, I don't mind accessories to be sold through, directly through invoices, but I only want to restrict it to non-serialized accessories. So any serialized accessories, I still want to sell through a purchase agreement. Okay, so if I say yes to this, then if an accessory is serialized, if it's something that you're going to be tracking serial numbers on, if I have yes but only non-serialized items, then obviously I can sell any other non-serialized accessories directly through an invoice. But if it's a serialized accessory, I will not be able to sell it directly through an invoice. Instead, I would have to go through a purchase agreement first and then indirectly create that invoice. So that's kind of what these radio buttons are allowing you to control on an item type basis. Alright, I'm going to close that item and talk about the super bill groups. So a moment ago when we were looking at items, if we were setting up a new service item, you have this grouping within super bill dropdown, and basically this dropdown is controlled by the super bill groups. So you can define different super bill groupings, just a way to kind of categorize. And another place in which those groupings are managed or appear is in the patient management suite on the schedule. If I wanted to, let's go back out to this guide, double click on this appointment. Let's take this appointment here and create a super bill for it, or print the super bill for that appointment. So you see here we have these categories of diagnosis and procedure codes, and looking at this list we have a grouping here called sensorineural hearing loss or conductive hearing loss, mixed hearing loss. So these groupings that we're seeing here are controlled by the groupings, these superbill groups that we have defined here. So if we were to create a new grouping here, I'll just call it another test group, and then I can categorize or define the sort order preference. So if I wanted it to appear, after the conductive hearing loss section, I could just add a sort order of somewhere between 10 and 15 here, so in this case 12. And you can just kind of make up these numbers, but I've kind of incremented them in groups of 5, so that if I ever wanted to add another group, like I am doing so here, and I wanted it to appear between the conductive and the mixed hearing loss, then I can specify sort order preferences that's somewhere in between 10 and 15, just any value between 10 and 15, and then it's going to be sorted accordingly. So this allows you to define your groups and define or control the sorting of those groupings. I'll just go ahead and cancel that item. Close the window. Buying groups. If you order product for manufacturers, but you go through a buying group, you can define a buying group out here very simply and easily. Just go ahead and create a new one, define the description, and denote whether it's active or inactive. So you see here just a few different buying groups that I have defined. And the way in which the buying groups come into play is primarily when you are setting up vendor accounts, and we'll talk about this more in detail in a moment. But basically, you would have a different account number that you would use when ordering product, and so we'll talk about that, the account numbers in a minute. But buying groups is just a quick and easy way to just define what your buying group name is. And so that's the buying groups. Buying group items and patient buying group is a concept that is not really useful today. It was a concept that we began developing, but kind of scrapped it. So well, I take that back. That's the patient buying groups is that. Let's talk about the buying group. Yeah, no, I don't want to talk about this. I'm sorry. Yeah, neither of these two are really applicable. Neither, not really functional at this time. So let's talk about the next item in the list, the discount programs. So a moment ago we were looking at our items, and one of the item types that we had defined was this patient discount program. And so I've selected that item, and what we have over on the left is just kind of a listing of all the products. On the right we have a discount program selected, and basically what we have here are the items, what actual items are applicable to the discount program. What is the discount program entitled the patient discounts on? So what I'm going to do here is select over on the left hand side. I'm going to use this filter to select the batteries. So let's say I want batteries to become part of the discount program. It looks like one of these is already on there, but let's say I need to add the 312 12-pack batteries as one of the items that the patient is entitled to a discount. So I've got that item. What is my discount percentage? Let's say I'm going to make it, well, let's make it free batteries for this on this discount program. So I want to add this item to my discount program, so I'm just going to go ahead and say add items. Now that item is in the list. Oh, looks like that item was already there. I didn't notice both of those battery items were already there, so I really don't need this one, so I can remove that item from the list. Let's take accessories. So let's add some accessories to the list. So let's say that of all these accessories that we have defined here, and I'll just select, I've held the control key down, and now I've selected a range of values. let's say that the patient is entitled to a 50% discount on all of these accessory items. So I've selected all of these items, I've defined my percentage, and I'm going to add those to my discount program. So now all of these items, this patient will be entitled to a 50% discount. On a item by item basis, if I needed to change it, let's take this U mic and say that I wanted a 30% discount. I can go just down into the line items and change the percentage as well. So you can kind of do it in mass by selecting a range of values. Let's say shipping charges. If I have any shipping charge the patient we might assess to the patient. Let's say that if they're on our discount program, they get free shipping. So we'll add the shipping items to our discount program, and now they too are also at 100% discount. So that's kind of the way you can manage your discount programs and the items the patient is eligible to receive discounts on. When you're finished, just go ahead and click the Save button, and we'll close window. Yeah, it looks like we had some duplicates, so I'm just going to go ahead and exit out of the window without saving. And that's the discount programs. The next item is our referral sources. I think this list that you see here is the list that you get by default, and this where the referral sources come into play, as you probably are already familiar, is on the patients module. You have the ability to define select a referral source. When you're editing a patient record, you can select from a referral source, and basically the listing of referral sources that we have defined here, and only the active ones. Those active ones will appear in this list here. Now we'll talk about marketing campaigns in a minute, but that's another layer of denoting the referral source that brought a patient into your organization. So that's the referral sources. You can edit any of these, and so let's say maybe Facebook is becoming more widely used. So let's say we want to make Facebook not archived, and we're going to utilize Facebook as a referral source and do some marketing via Facebook. So we'll go ahead and flag accordingly. You can create your own referral sources. Just go ahead and click New, add your description, and click OK to save. Really easy to define your referral sources. Just continuing along, the next item in the list, relationships, and where relationships come into play is again on the patient management suite, where you have the ability to denote the significant other for a patient and then what that relationship is. This relationship drop down is controlled by the listing that we have defined here, and you can add to this list as you need or change any of the labels or descriptions accordingly. Insurance providers, this is where so the insurance providers controls the insurance providers selection. Let's cancel that and go to the insurance tab for this patient. So basically when you're defining the insurance information for a patient and you're editing this information, this selection, the search dialog that appears, this listing of insurance providers is controlled by your insurance provider, the insurance provider list. So if you wanted to set up a new insurance provider, let's say that Kaiser is a big one out on the West Coast. Kaiser Insurance, I don't know the real name of that organization. Then 123 Business Lane as the address for that insurance provider, and you can have address line 1, 2, 3, 4. We do not break out, or you have up to 4 different lines for the address, and then of course your city, state, and zip, state down below. Let's Actually, they're set up somewhere in California. 9028. Phone number and fax number for the insurance provider. If you have an email address or a primary contact, you can define that email address, contact name, any notes about the provider, and then you can define the provider number in the insurance qualifier, which is important for filing out or doing health insurance claim forms. And some of these attributes about 4-character dates controls how the dates appear on the claim forms or the electronic claim forms, whether or not the provider is archived or an active provider, and whether or not you want to print out the balance due on the health insurance claim form. So you can control those various attributes here on an insurance on a case-by-case basis. For an insurance provider, looks like you can go into the provider and print out an envelope. It's a quick and easy way to generate an envelope for your providers to which maybe those health insurance claim forms are being submitted. Event types. So this event type list allows you to control the event types that are used here on the patient's. Let me cancel out of the edit mode here and go to the events. So if you were to create a new event here, this event type drop down is controlled by the event types that you have defined in the administration area. So let's go over here and create a new event type, and let's call this the birthday card. And so so now I have an event type called birthday card. If and I don't mean to confuse folks here with that label, but perhaps on after sending out birthday cards, you would want to record the fact that you had sent out a birthday card, and so you could choose the event type as being a birthday card from this list, and then record the date that event was completed. So then you'd have a log, a record that says July birthday card was sent. Okay, so that's where you can create your event and event type. So I don't have my event type set up. There are certain events like reminders, for appointments, as an example, where you want to see those appointment reminders show up in the task list. So let me just go ahead and flag or go into edit mode here. So when appointments are, appointment reminders are needed, where you need to follow up with the patient or call the patient and remind them of their appointment, you want to have those events show up in your task list. So that's what this add events to task list checkbox controls. And then you have the ability to define the number of days before which the task will show up in your task list, or the event will show up in your task list. So in this case, 10 days out. So if I want to see that, 10 days is plenty. Let's say maybe we want to do 4 days out. So we're gonna do appointment confirmation reminders maybe 4 days out, but I guess it depends on how you're doing your appointment reminders. So when this was 10 days, I think this was set up as 10 days because we maybe are sending out a letter to patients for those appointment confirmations. So and in our letter we might include a write-up explaining the directions, or a map that includes directions to the clinic. Now, some of your events you may want to have as a like these wax removals. As an example, this too is also an event that we want to show up on our task list, but it's also a recurring, it's a recall type of event where we want the patient to be seen every 3 months for wax removal. So it should, in this case, it is flagged as a recall schedule event type, and that means we want this to show up in our list of event types that can be serve as a recall event. And so I'm flagging this as an event type of a recall, and every 3 months in this case we want to we would want to see the patient. So what we're essentially defining is out on patients here, where we have our recall schedules, or we can put a patient on a recall schedule. Let me go into edit mode. So I can define a a new recall event and set it up as a recurring or a recurring recall event, and add a patient to that type of event. So every 6 months or every 3 months, the patient is going to come up in our task list as to be contacted to schedule their next wax removal appointment. Okay, so jumping back into the administration area, this is where you can define it as a recall event and then specify the duration. So maybe 3 months wax removal is too frequently. Maybe we do every 4 months. So I'm going to change that description and say rather than every 3 months, I'm going to make it every 4 months. So you have control over quite a few different things here regarding the event types. Some event types are defined as system events, phone outs. Some of these appointments, they are system event types, and that means that we here at OddServe created those events and are using those types of events to automatically create events for certain patients. So when certain actions happen, like when appointments are appointment outcomes are being entered, we will create events of the type appointment as well to let you know that to record the SOAP notes. So if we jump back over into our patient management suite and go to the events, again, I'm always leaving myself in edit mode here, but if I go to events, one of the different completed events that gets automatically created by the system is when an appointment is completed, then the SOAP notes corresponding to that appointment are added here into our event logs. And so that's what you have the ability to define here for the event types. Order list is allows you to define here in the orders tab. Basically what we're defining here, if I select hearing aid order, the order list allows you to define the labels and the values that appear in these drop downs within the patient orders or stock orders. Okay, so we have batteries, canal length, comfort seal, faceplate colors. These are configurable labels, and the drop downs within these, or the values appearing in these drop downs, are configurable via the order list administration window. Okay, so if we wanted to add another type of attribute that we would want to be able to specify when we're submitting a patient order, and we've got up to 16 different drop-down fields that can be specified. Well, let's say we want to make up a new one as I don't know, I'm fumbling around here for a good example, but let's say we wanted a new one, and I'll just say I'm just going to call it ZZZ. okay, as the label. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that new label. So ZZZ is my new order list label, and this listing appearing above is kind of what we have already defined. So shell color is one of the labels that we have defined. So first of all, the left-hand side is just the labels, and I can create new ones or edit any of the existing ones. Okay, and so we've got a kind of a series of buttons. This is just defining the labels. Then on the right-hand side, I have the ability to, for any of those labels, including my new one, ZZZ, I can come up with and create new values that would appear in the drop-down corresponding to that label. So I'm going to create a new value, and I'm going to associate it with the ZZZ label, and my description is test number 1. Okay, and I'm going to save that item, and then I'm going to create another item and associate it to my label of ZZZ, and then we're going to call it test number 2. Okay, and save that one. Oh, except I screwed up. I goofed up here. Let me go back over here, and in addition to defining these labels and items, with which type of order am I setting it up? Am I doing this for new aids? Is it a valid attribute for repairs, ear molds, loss and damage claims? Is it valid for return for credit claims? Or am I doing this for stock aids or stock accessory or battery orders? So I'm going to make this a new attribute that's applicable to all of the patient order records. So I'm going to go ahead and flag those 5 different checkboxes. So now I'm basically saying that the ZZZ label and test number 1 and test number 2 are going to be eligible on all of these different order forms. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to select test number 2 as well and edit it and say that it too is also eligible for these different order forms. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's create one more here and associate it with my new label ZZZ, and let's call this test number 3, but let's say that it is only valid for new aid order forms. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now let's jump back over into the patient orders, and I'm going to cancel out of that and close out of this window. And then I'm going to go back in because I've changed some of the system settings. I need to make sure that the system settings are being reflected. So now I've selected my hearing aid item, my hearing aid order. Notice now that I have a new label, ZZZ, and if I were to edit my order and select my drop-down list, I have test 1, test number 2, and test number 3. So that order list administration window is how you can manage the labels and the drop-down values that appear here on patient orders. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that. Let's take this ear mold order. Let's say I want to edit it. Notice too that for ear molds, ZZZ label is appearing. But in the drop-down list, only test number 1 and test number 2 are applicable or seem to be applicable. And that's because when I set up that test item number 3, I did not set it up for the ear mold order form. I only set it up for new hearing aids. And so that's kind of some of the configurability and flexibility that's available here regarding your order lists. Okay, so the layout is a little bit confusing, but just kind of keep in mind that the list names is kind of the labels, and the list name elements are the drop-down values that appear in the corresponding drop-downs. All right, so that's order lists. The one-off credit invoice. Let's go into there, and I don't have a patient record. So basically, the one-off credit invoice gives me the ability to return product that wasn't initially sold via Prism Connect. So for those of you who are, when you first start using Prism Connect, there's kind of a period of time where you may have sold hearing aids to a patient, in the system that you were using before you started using Prism Connect. So Prism Connect isn't going to have any record of you selling those hearing aids. There isn't a purchase agreement. There isn't an invoice through which you can initiate a return for credit or a return of any sort on product. So the one-off credit invoice gives you the ability to return any items that were sold before you initiated or created an invoice in Prism Connect. But to begin, you notice that my patient ID is 0. I don't have a patient name, clinician, or clinic. So before I can go into or do anything here, and if I try to create a new one-off credit invoice, it's going to tell me, hey, I don't have a patient selected. And so you're not going to be utilizing the one-off credit invoice module very often, but you do need to select a patient record first. So now I have Jeff Hansen as my patient record. I'm going to go back into main, go back into administration, and now I can go into the one-off credit invoice. Now my patient ID is showing and my name. I'm going to create a new credit invoice, and I'm denoting this either as a cancellation, a return, or an exchange. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a return. And which clinician initially sold the product. I'm going to go ahead and say Dave Anderson at the Fairmont Clinic, and the invoice date, the date of my return is the 31st. And the cash with order discount is not applicable. Sales taxes are going to apply. So now I'm ready to add invoice details. What product is being returned? So now I have the opportunity to select from my list of products and say that maybe it was this telephone solution or TV audio solution is the product that's being returned. They're not satisfied with it, so I'm returning one TV audio solution. And what was the amount that the patient was originally charged? Let's say it's $139. And so that's the amount that's being returned in this case. Sales tax is going to be included, and so we're ending up with a credit amount of $148.56. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that item, select on my item list again, and let's say that they are also returning. Maybe it was a pair of hearing aids. So you can select from a list of hearing aids. I'm just going to select any old one here, and then so let's say that's the Destiny 1200. I'm going to cancel this. Let's go back to our item list and say it was the Destiny 1200, and I'm going to sort this list. Can I sort it? It doesn't look like it. How is this sorted? Destiny 1200. So let's say that this is the Destiny 1200 that was sold, and the patient is returning one of the items. So when you're selecting a hearing aid item or an ear mold item, then a pop-up of existing product. So while we don't have an invoice that represents the sale of the hearing aid, the original sale of the hearing aid, we may have converted hearing aid information. So I could select one of the existing hearing aids and say use this hearing aid. And so that would that hearing aid record then would be tied to this credit invoice. What was the amount that was originally charged, or what's the amount that's going to be returned? And then I can go ahead and click submit. Oops, I need to specify a quantity, and it's 1. And I'll go ahead and submit. So now I've got the TV audio solution and one hearing aid that's being set up for return. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. A credit invoice has been created. When I click close window, that's going to bring me back into the patient management suite. And if I were to go back and look at the invoicing tab now, one of the invoices that is going to show up in my list is that credit invoice that I created via the one-off credit invoice window. Okay, so it's a little bit, a few extra steps required there in this case, but we expect that your need to use the one-off credit invoice is not going to happen very often, and if it does happen, it's only going to be in that initial period where you begin using Prism Connect as your your practice management system. Patient custom fields. This is where you can define the labels that correspond to the custom fields on the patient information tab. So again, let me just go back into the patient management suite and jump over to the patients. So the custom fields that I show here, cancer patient, diabetic, word recognition score, those values that are appearing here are configurable via the patient custom fields labels. So this is where you can define it. So here's another, so we'll do favorite activity, let's say favorite color as maybe one of the bits of information that we want to gather about our patients. So we'll define favorite color and save that information. And it's saving. Okay, my patient or my custom field label has been saved. So I'm going to close this window. Let's jump back into the patient management suite, and let me close out of this window and come back into it. And now when we click on custom fields, you'll notice that favorite color has been added as a label. And so if I were to go into edit mode here, then I could add green, record green as the favorite color for this patient. So that's how you can define, come up with the labels that are used here for your custom fields. Alright, we'll jump back into the administration area. Audio tests is the module or the window in which you can define the, basically construct those SOAP note descriptions that appear when you're inputting your appointment outcomes. So you can edit any of the existing descriptions just by selecting one of the items in the list and then click edit. So I'll just add a period to the end of that description, say OK. And in this case it's been used before, so it doesn't like it when we edit any descriptions that have already been used, because those descriptions and such, when we're constructing letters and such, the descriptions are already tied to some of the case history. So we want to prevent you from redefining one of the existing histories, because that would change kind of the history of how it's been used. You can create new ones though, and so you can say that another type of history that I want to record here is let's do, we'll do situation and history, and we'll say that family history of listening to loud music, just as a silly example of a new description. And so where that's going to appear, just to make it clear to you of any new descriptions that you add, is back in the patient management suite. We'll go to an appointment for this patient. We'll go to this, of course, cancel, yes, double click. Alright, so we're going to go to the outcomes again. And so here, when you're constructing your SOAP notes, when you're going through the SOAP note builder, one of the items, this is where you can define your items. So I just added this description of a family history of listening to loud music. And so now I can use that item as well as many other items here in the SOAP note builder. Alright, so that's how you can add descriptions to your SOAP notes. And let's jump back into the administration area. And the next item is their system settings. Alright, here on system settings, we've got quite a bit of information to talk about. At the top is a checkbox that allows you to denote whether you want the system to automatically approve invoices as soon as they are entered and saved. And so what this means is that when you create a new invoice for a patient, as soon as you save that invoice and have the items added, the system can automatically approve it. The advantage is that you do not have to utilize, or would never have to go, you don't have to go into invoice approval to review and sign off on the invoices that have been created. But the drawback is that as soon as you save that invoice, it is approved and can no longer be edited. So it's quite rigid with respect to an ability to correct mistakes. If you want to enable this setting, you certainly can do so. We don't recommend it, especially for those who are just getting started in Prism Connect, because we have found that inevitably, as you're just kind of becoming familiar with the system, little mistakes are made. And so with auto approve invoices enabled, you're just quite a bit more restricted with your ability to make corrections to any mistakes that are in fact made. So, but that's what the automatically approve invoices checkbox allows you to enable. Require a QuickBook identifier. For those of you who are going to be utilizing QuickBooks as your system, as your accounting system, when you're utilizing QuickBooks in order to account for your clinic, to kind of manage or separate clinic activity or clinic transactions between each other, we encourage you to utilize the class concept within QuickBooks. And when you are utilizing the class concept, or just differentiating your clinics via the class concept in QuickBooks, it's important to make sure that you have entered a QuickBook identifier for your clinics here in Prism Connect. So if you are going to utilize QuickBooks, we would recommend that you require a QuickBook identifier for each clinic, and that ensures that as you are going into the clinics table, that ensures that before you are able to save your clinic record, you have to enter in a QuickBook identifier for the clinic record. Okay, so that's what this require QuickBook identifier checkbox controls. When you're printing letters for physician letters or patient letters, you may have some letterhead that already includes your clinic name and logo, and in which case you probably do not want to have the system reprint the clinic name and address and logo. So if you have pre-printed letterhead, then go ahead and click this checkbox, in which case Prism Connect will no longer include the clinic name and logo information when printing letters via the system. So if you have a existing letterhead that you would want to print on, then just go ahead and click this checkbox. If you don't and want the system to print out the clinic name, address, and logos, then go ahead and deselect this checkbox. For those of you using Prism Connect to input your accounts payable and cost information, if you want to receive notifications by the system when you're inputting cost, if you want the system to update an item's cost or issue a prompt that allows you to update an item's cost. So let's say you're expecting a hearing aid. You're expecting to be charged $1,000 for a hearing aid, and the amount that you are charged is maybe $1,100. Well, your expected cost might be $1,000. The new cost might be $1,100. So if you want the system to allow you to update an item's cost when you're entering that payable information, then go ahead and leave this click this checkbox to receive a prompt. And so that what that will allow you to do is to have the system automatically take the $1,100 new cost that you were assessed and apply it to that item, and that $1,100 that then would serve as the new expected cost going forward. If you don't want the system to issue prompts to update an item's expected cost, then just go ahead and deselect that checkbox. The next item allows you to control whether or not you will receive prompts from the system when the cost exceeds or varies from where the actual cost varies from the expected cost by more than this percentage. So if you want to receive, so the way I have this set up right now is that if my actual cost varies from the expected cost by more than 5%, then I will receive a prompt just alerting me to the fact that there is a cost variance. And so if you want to bump this up and not receive those warnings except when the actual cost exceeds expected cost by more than 10%, then you can just go ahead and adjust accordingly. If you don't want to receive those notifications, then just go ahead and bump this up to maybe 1,000%. So in which case then you're not going to receive a warning except unless your actual cost exceeds expected cost by more than 1,000%. So you can make it really tight and say that I want to receive a warning anytime the cost varies. Then go ahead and enter 0%. So that's what that percentage of cost variance percentage field controls. The security grouping allows you to denote the length of time before the system will automatically log you off. So as you can see here, I have this set at 30 minutes. I think HIPAA policy is every the maximum length of time is around 20 minutes. The maximum length of time is 3 hours or 180 minutes. So what this is essentially doing is if you're sitting on the application for more than 30 minutes or more than 180 minutes or whatever you have that set at, if the application is open, you're logged in, but you're not interfacing, you're not doing anything with it, then the system will detect that period of inactivity, and as soon as it reaches that 30-minute mark or whatever mark you have it set at, then it will automatically log you off. Do you want the users to utilize strong passwords? A strong password essentially means that the user has to use a combination of upper and lowercase characters as well as numeric and special characters like a % sign or an ampersand sign or dollar signs. Those are special characters. So if you want strong passwords to be used and required, go ahead and enable accordingly. Do you want passwords to expire? Maybe every 90 days or every 60 days you want passwords to expire. If so, go ahead and denote as such. By default, 90 days will drop in. You can increment that to 120, any number of days that you want. So maybe once a year at least you want passwords to expire. Then go ahead and enter 365 days. Alright, so that's some of the security settings that you have control over. The next grouping relates to those who are utilizing QuickBooks. and are utilizing the accounting export to get information out of Prism Connect into QuickBooks. So the invoice start date for those who are setting up beginning balance or balance forward records, where you've got some patients coming from the legacy system who still have an outstanding balance. Well, you can create invoices and record those invoices as balance forward transactions, excuse me, in which case you will not want those invoices to be exported and imported into QuickBooks again, because you already would likely have that information already in QuickBooks. So you can declare a date as of which you're going to start invoicing via Prism Connect, and every invoice created as of that date and thereafter will be included in the exports to QuickBooks. So this just kind of allows you to denote the start date. So your balance forward invoices that you would create, you would want to have dated before the date in which you start using the system, or the date before which you have denoted here as your invoice start date. Projecting costs. So we have a report when you're doing your cost of goods sold exports. We have a report available that allows you to kind of forecast what any items might cost. And this is valuable, especially at year end, when you might want to accrue the costs that you, the expenses that you have incurred for any orders that have been placed but not yet received. So in those cases, you can denote a percentage that would be used to project the cost of an item. And basically what we're saying is 36% would be the approximate cost of an item based on its sale price. So if a hearing aid was sold at $1,000, then the expected cost would be $360, because we've got 36% set up as the percentage to use for projecting an item's cost, and basically it's a percentage of the sale amount. Okay. Then we have a field just showing what the name to be used in the accounts receivable transaction. So if you are again using QuickBooks, the accounts receivable transactions need to have a name in them, and Prism Connect would be the name that would be used if you're for some of the transactions. And there's another place when you're setting up your general ledger account definitions, Prism Connect can be changed there. It's not changeable here, but it is kind of a system setting that's just displayed here for informational purposes. And then you have the ability to denote whether or not you want to, when you're generating your sales transactions, larger organizations may want to roll up their sales activity and summarize the sales activity on a monthly basis for a clinic, perhaps according to item types or something like that. And so you have the ability to denote whether you want your invoice sales transactions summarized or broken out in detail. And so summarized transactions would be kind of a month-end summary, whereas detail could be your detailed transactions could be generated on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, whatever the case may be. So you have the ability to control whether or not your sales transactions are summarized or broken out into detail. Assessment periods can be defined by state, and this is where you can set up the default assessment period. So how many days does a patient have to assess the hearing aids that they're being sold? And so the defaults across the board for all of the states is 45 days. You can go in here and edit on a case-by-case basis, what the assessment period is on a state-by-state basis. So go ahead and just go into the field and specify the number of days accordingly. Where that assessment period comes into play is in the purchase agreements when you have selected a purchase agreement and are inputting the assessment period. So let's say I'm going to edit this purchase agreement. Let's say that the fitting date is going to be on the 31st of July. Well, here's where the assessment period number of days defaults in. So this is set at 45 days. So if you had set up your assessment period at 60 days or 90 days, whatever that period is, this is where that number would drop in, and then the system will automatically calculate the assessment period end date according to the number of days and the fitting date thereafter. So that's how the assessment period is utilized, or how these number of days are utilized. And then we have some informational settings: close date, the last close date, end dates, events last created date, and then some EMR settings, which we all kind of which we manage for those EMR integrations that for those clients that are utilizing an EMR system and interfacing with Prism Connect. Alright, so that's the system settings. Quite a bit there available there. I'm not gonna go ahead and accept all those changes that I've made, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel, and then I'll close window. And then let's go into the marketing campaign. Excuse me here for a second. Let's go into the marketing campaigns. And this is where you can further define some of those referral sources. And so you can be very specific about your marketing campaigns here and define any marketing campaigns you want. So let's go through and create a new marketing campaign. Let's say that we've done a summer mailing, or we're about to do a summer mailing here for this summer of 2013. And you can, so after you've given it made up a campaign name, you can associate it with a referral source. So maybe you've got a newspaper ad that you're doing that is, start with a local newspaper, or whatever the case may be, radio spot or TV spots. So associate your marketing campaign with a referral source, and really that's all that you essentially need to define your campaign. You can make up a promo code, so you can say summer 13 or something like that as maybe my promo code, and really that's all that you have to create a start date, I guess. I lied. Alright, so there's one more thing that you need, and that is a start date. So let's say that we started this marketing campaign, let's say at the beginning of July. And so it's getting a little more specific for me. There's some complexity to this that we're kind of running into. And basically, the way that we have this configured here in the marketing campaigns is can be used to generate a list of mailing leads. So one of the things that OddServe can do for you is if you have received a list of potential patient leads, we can import that lead list into your database and make that list available to you. And once you have that list imported, and we can help you buy a list as well, but once that list is imported, you can create these marketing campaigns. And in the case of a mailing where we're doing a direct mail piece, we can generate segments and generate kind of slice up a list of, take all of your leads and break it up into chunks. And so where maybe every week, every 2 weeks, some periodic basis, and I'll just go ahead and choose a bi-weekly. So let's say every 2 weeks we're gonna do hit a segment of all of our leads. So if we take all of our leads and say that it's a pie, we're gonna break up that pie into different slices and make those segments. And so let's say over maybe over we're going to take 6 segments. So every 2 weeks we're going to do another segment. So essentially over a period of 12 weeks we're going to hit all of our leads and all of our pie. And so I'm doing a bi-weekly cycle and for a total of 6 segments. And then what I want to do, or what you can do, is associate clinics. So for which clinics am I going to do a marketing campaign to? And so I've got a few of my clinics, and I've got leads based on zip codes associated with some of these clinics. So I'm going to take my Vero Beach location, which has approximately 35,000 or over 35,000 leads to it. So I'm going to say that I'm doing a marketing campaign for my Vero Beach location. And now of that, I can take my segments and say that I want to do all of the leads. So it's going to take my 35,000 or so leads and break it up into 6 different segments. Or perhaps I want to limit it, so I don't have the I don't have the advertising budget to hit all of those leads. Maybe I want to just take maybe 10,000 of those leads, or maybe 15,000, or some limited number. So I can specify all leads, or I can do some subset of all the leads. Now the way that we slice that up is we kind of we take a prorated basis of the leads based on the number of zip codes. So we're not just randomly picking. Well, we are kind of randomly picking leads, but it's got a little more emphasis, and that is we want a prorated number of leads from each of the zip codes that I have represented in my lead list. So let's say I have 5 different zip codes, and one of the zip codes has 10,000 leads, another zip code has 15,000 leads, and the rest are divided up somewhat evenly amongst the other different zip codes. Well, we'll take kind of a prorated basis, so 10 out of the 35,000 we're going to take kind of a prorated base number of leads and kind of slice up the segments. I'm probably making this explanation far more complicated than I need to, but the point is I can kind of limit my budget or not, and so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as all leads. Mailing type is not defined at this time, and neither is size or envelope color. It's kind of as we kind of build out our marketing efforts and make various material available on to be utilized, we'll be populating more of this information. You can add any notes that you want. If you have a sample copy of what you're going to be sending out, you can do a little search on your computer and upload an image of what that marketing piece may look like. So here's just an image that I'll include. And if you want to keep track of your costs, like who are we paying? Well, let's say that you're doing this marketing campaign through OddServe here. So let's say OddServe is your vendor, and the service that we're providing is we're helping you purchase the lead list. So we're purchasing the lead list and producing the marketing material and doing the postage. So that's all the services that we're catering to, and the cost of this campaign is going to be about, let's say, $8,500. And so we're going to save that cost, and so now I've got a cost now associated with my campaign. So down the road, if you're evaluating your marketing efforts and wanted to kind of assess what kind of sales have each of these marketing campaigns generated, well, we can compare those sales to the cost here, and so you kind of get a side-by-side comparison of sales and cost, and it's via this input of the campaign costs is how we're inputting that information. Okay, so now I've got my costs, so I'm going to go ahead and save this marketing campaign, and as we're doing so, what it's going to be doing is building or constructing a schedule, and I'll show you what that will look like here in just a moment. Okay, so we have our marketing campaign saved, and so let's go ahead and take a look at our schedule now. And so what happened when we were saving the marketing campaign with our 6 different segments is basically it has taken that 35,000 leads and broken it up into 6 different segments. And so on July 1st, what this is saying is we're scheduled to hit the first segment, and we're going to hit 5,945 leads on July 1st in the first segment. So they're all so that mailing's going to go out. Then 2 weeks later, we're going to hit the next segment, which is again approximately the same number but slightly less. There's always a little bit of rounding going on because we are prorating our leads according to zip codes and such like that. But basically, we have the ability to export a segment into, generate a list, kind of a subset of all the leads and hit them on a periodic basis via this campaign schedule. And so that's a lot of the functionality. That's some of the functionality I think that's worth explaining here with the marketing campaigns. But you can also do a campaign that might be, let's say, we're doing a newspaper ad, and so we'll say that this is our local paper here in the Twin Cities is the Star Tribune, and we'll say that we're doing an ad on approximately August 1st through August 15. We'll say kind of like a 2-week stretch or so, and this is just going to be actually I don't think it really matters, so I'll just do a start date, and so we'll say August 1st is our start date, and go ahead and save that because the segments here really doesn't matter here. I'll just do one segment and save that. So now I've got another campaign that's associated that is associated with my newspaper referral source. So now if I go back into the patient management suite, and again I'll cancel this, close the window to refresh that listing. Let's see here, and then I'll go into edit mode here and bring up my my list. I should now see my new newspaper campaign that's starting on August 1st, as well as my direct mail piece for the summer of 2013, with my promo code and start date. So that's how you can that's how you can set up your referral sources and your marketing campaigns, is via that administration module that we were looking at. Alright, well that completes everything under the administration grouping. The next few items should go pretty quickly. I take that back. Vendors, there's a few things to talk about here. So the vendors allows you to define some information about your vendors, including a mailing address and such like that. So you've general ledger names. So if you're again using QuickBooks, you can define the general ledger vendor name that will be used. So when accounts payable or the payable records are pushed out into QuickBooks, what vendor should be paid, so you can kind of match up the existing vendors with you can input the vendor name that you use within QuickBooks, the mailing address for the vendor, phone numbers, email address, and a contact if you so choose. We're working on functionality that will allow you to send to email order forms to your account reps, so you can enter in your account rep and enter in their email address, and then that information can be emailed to your account reps. A typical shipping charge. So for those of you who are going to be entering in your cost information into Prism Connect, you can record what the typical shipping charge is for any shipments received from a manufacturer or a vendor, and that amount will drop into your accounts payable records each time you are recording a new invoice for an order that was received from that vendor. You can also record the loss and damage fee, the default loss and damage fee that a patient would have to pay if they're making a loss and damage claim. This information is dropped into the purchase agreements when you're creating a purchase agreement with hearing aids on it. And you can also specify, how many days does the vendor allow you to keep keep hearing aids before they can no longer be returned. So anytime you're receiving stock aids via stock order receiving, we'll record the date that the product is received, and then add a hearing aid return date to that aid record. And then as that date draws near, if the hearing aid hasn't been sold, an event will be created for the inventory manager, reminding them to return, reminding them that the hearing aid can be returned. Otherwise, it has to be kept and sold. So some of the attributes. Let me just go ahead and edit this record. If you have one vendor that's kind of your main supplier, you can flag them as the main supplier, and then when you're looking at a list of items, like within invoicing, you have the option, or you have the ability to limit the items to just those of your main supplier. And if you don't want to see any items or utilize a vendor, then you can go ahead and flag them as deselect the active checkbox to flag them as inactive. So that's the vendors window. The next item is vendor accounts. So this is where you define the account numbers that you will use when you're ordering product. And earlier we talked about a buying group. So let's just kind of walk through a scenario in which we're setting up account numbers for a manufacturer, and maybe we're doing so for because we're going through a buying group, and maybe another scenario where we are not. So let's do the first scenario. Let's do let's set up a new manufacturer. So let's say that we're going to work with Exilent as our vendor. And so I'm going to enter in the vendor account number that Exilent gave me for my organization. And so I'm just making up a number, and we're going to associate this with our Brooklyn Park clinic. And is this account number my ship to number or my bill to account number? And for each vendor and clinic you will that you're using our order forms, you'll want to set up both a ship to and a bill to account number. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that this is my ship to account number. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to do another one for Exilent and say that this is going to be my bill to. And I'll just kind of preface it with a BT to kind of make that clear that that's my bill to. And again, I'm doing this for my Brooklyn Park Clinic, and this is going to be my bill to account. And also, again, if you have an account rep name and email address that you want to use to submit orders, you can input that information here. And so I'll save that one. And so now, down in my list, we should see Exilent. Let's sort it by vendor here. So now I've got my for my Brooklyn Park Clinic, I have my or for Exilent, I have my bill to account, and I have my ship to account number for Brooklyn Park. So when I have my my bill to account number selected, basically what we're saying is that when Exilent is sending us product, no matter where it's being shipped, I want my vendor invoices to go to the Brooklyn Park Clinic. Okay. Now if I were going through a buying group, I'm going to do one more scenario, and let's say I'm going to go through a buying group, and I've got this buying group called Buy Health as my buying group, and again I want to go through Exilent as my vendor. So if I'm ordering product through a buying group, and on some occasions and other occasions I'm not going through the buying group, you'll need to set up corresponding account numbers as such. But now that I'm setting up a buying group, I'm going to go ahead and set up my vendor account number. And again, I'll say that this is the Brooklyn Park, and I'm going to denote this as my bill to account. Alright, so the difference here just being that in this case, I'm denoting the buying group as you know, to which this vendor account number applies. Alright, so that's the vendor account numbers. Patient codes and payment types. The next two items, just a real quick and easy, just a simple description and a sort value so you can kind of control how these items appear in the drop-down list. And the drop-downs that we're managing via the patient codes and the payment types are those appearing here in the patient information screen, and it's this patient code and it's this payment type drop-down. So toggling back over, payment types is controlling, you know, obviously the payment type drop-down, and patient codes is the other one. Just real quick and easy, just basically descriptions on those. And the last one that we'll talk about here is the payment methods, and this controls the different payment methods that are available when you're receiving payments. Again, let me cancel. I'm still in edit mode. So if I'm going into invoicing and recording a payment that I'm receiving from a patient, the payment method drop-down is managed and configured by the payment methods that you have defined here. Okay, so when you're creating or editing a payment method, you can associate it with one of these different categories. These are just predefined categories. You can't change these, you know, but is it cash, is it check, credit card, or care credit? And so just edit your description or add a description and categorize it accordingly. And that's about the extent of the payment methods. But well, we've talked about a lot here, but we have gotten through all of the different windows that I wanted to cover here within the administration module. Hope you found this informative, enlightening, and hopefully it clarified any questions that you may have had about any of these administration pages. So thanks for the time and watching, and I wish you a great day.